G'day everyone, it's been a hot minute, I understand, and I will update you on what's been going on and the very good reasons behind why I haven't really been posting in a while, but that's going to be in the second half of the video. As you can probably tell from the title, I am going to deliver just a forward way of thinking for Brad Scott, because I'm not an umpire basher. I don't think fans should be umpire bashers. We should be looking at who's making umpires make decisions and criticise that, because they're only doing their job. Now, whether you think they're doing it well or whether you think they're doing it poorly is completely up to you. But considering so much of our game is interpretation, there are going to be human mistakes. That's how interpretation works. But I'm not just a man who's here to criticise, I'm a man with solutions. And what we need to do is get rid of reflex decisions and punish bad decisions. Let me explain what I mean. I'm Daz, this is Daz Talks Footy. Let's get into it. Alright, so Daz, what are you talking about? Well, let's start with a few of the rules that seem to be getting the most, I don't really want to say hate, but I guess we're kind of at that point, aren't we? So, let's start with insufficient intent. Now, it's probably the least criticised out of all of them, but hey, you got to start somewhere. Now, if your reflex decision is to get the ball out of bounds, I can kind of understand the umpire paying that decision, but every insufficient intent decision needs to be based on the premise that a player decides to get the ball out of bounds, not uses a reflex and the ball goes out of bounds. Now, as far as I know, that interpretation is kind of how the rule is adjudicated, and I don't really have a problem with this rule at all. This is more of a answering the people on Twitter that really hate this rule. I actually think insufficient intent is kind of halfway to where we need to go. I don't think deliberate is a good way to call it, because you can't read a player's mind. Insufficient intent is, again, you're trying to read the player's mind a little bit more. But I think what's been taken out of the game, and why I wanted to start with this rule, is common sense is kind of being taken out of the equation here. We're not looking at a ball that's bounced sideways and gone, the ball's bounced sideways. You can't insufficiently intend for the ball to bounce. But if the ball is going towards the boundary line and it goes over at a decent enough speed, absolutely pay it. But the reflex decision to get the ball on the boot and the ball does unpredictable things should not be penalised. Players that are deliberately trying to get the ball out of bounds because it is their only option absolutely need to be penalised, because if they didn't get the ball out and they're tackled, it would be holding the ball. You don't get a get-out clause by getting the ball across the line. That shouldn't be how it works at all. I think the umpiring around insufficient intent has actually wildly been okay, but this is one of those rules that people don't really give a shit about until it goes against them, so that's just the first one there, so we'll start with that. But I think out of all the kind of rules that are up in the air, it's actually being umpired the best, but that's my take. Alrighty, let's do protected area, because this is actually why we need to get reflexes back into the game and bad decision making out of the game. Now, this whole prohibited area crap is not okay, because we are telling players that you've got two options. Essentially, if you get into a bad running pattern, if you're off by even a microsecond, you're screwed, because if you follow your opponent, you're going to get pinged. If you don't follow your opponent and go the other side of the man on the mark, which is your teammate, you're going to get pinged. So what the hell can a player do apart from stop? Well, if a player stops and doesn't move, they're giving their opponent an uncontested possession. And in such a territory-based game, considering Melbourne and Carlton and Brisbane and St Kilda and these teams are the kings of metres gained, it is ever so more important to the game of footy. What we need to do is just tweak the rule. We don't need to break the rule, tweak the rule. Now, how do you tweak the rule? Very simple. If you are within 2 or 3 metres of your opponent, you can run anywhere. However, when the umpire calls play on, the player that is not on the mark cannot turn around. Cannot turn around. So if you're running past a player that is on the mark and the umpire calls play on, the player that's run past the opposing player needs to keep going. They can't impact that contest. They're still following their opponent. They're making sure they're not getting the territory. And the first point of pressure is either going to be the man on the mark or someone else. But the player that's running through what we would now call the prohibited area cannot impact the guy kicking the footy because he's worrying about his opponent. Now that is awesome because the way that you would get pinged for a 50 is not a reflex decision of following your opponent. It is a bad decision, which would be to then ignore your direct opponent, turn around and try and tackle. All of those things are decisions. We need to punish decisions, not reflexes. Let an AFL footballer do his best at following his direct opponent. He shouldn't be punished for that. He should be punished by breaking the rules, turning around, and trying to create a 2-on-1 tackle situation. That is what he should do. The prohibited 50 is an embarrassing rule and it needs to stop. It's not the most embarrassing rule, but then again, you don't need to do the most embarrassing thing at a party to not want to hang out with your friends anymore. Punish decisions. Do not punish reflexes. Let players follow their opponent. This is so aggravating. Gil, Brad Scott, whoever needs to hear this, do not punish players for trying to follow their opponent. The game is hard enough as it is. My God, let's get onto, umpire dissent and a way that we can tweak that as well. So, we need to crack down on umpire abuse. Absolutely we do. Huge tick. No one should be swearing at umpires. Now, I am firmly in the camp, and I've never been an AFL umpire, so I can't speak from experience. But having gone to and worked at about 150 games of footy through the AFL Auskick program, whether it's been senior footy at a local level, the umpire dissent, I would say, is an 80% fan problem. The things that are thrown over the fence are way more disgusting than what players say on the field. That's not good, and fans need to fix that. I don't care how shitty your 9-to-5 job is. Taking it out on someone at a game of footy, and I'm talking about at a senior local level here, on someone that's just trying to do their best for a senior football game, does not make you a messiah. Ditch your God complex and firmly go fuck yourself if you think that taking out your shitty life on someone umpiring a football game makes you feel better. It's disgusting and it needs to stop. With that out of the way, how do we fix umpire dissent at the AFL level? Well, it's very simple. How do you ditch bad decisions, but we keep reflexes in the game? And it's very simple. You know that stand rule that everyone hates? Umpires will say stand more than once. So they'll say stand, and if the player on the mark, is not fully set, the umpire will say stand again. Watch a game of footy, keep an eye, or an ear, out for it, and you will see it. Plain as day, the umpire will say stand, and if a player's not set, the umpire will say stand a little bit louder again. If a player looks like he is going to show dissent, Chad Warner, the Carlton-Sydney game, the perfect example, all the umpire's got to do is say stop. So if they're not abusing the umpire, you swear at an umpire, you deserve a 50 against you. It's not how it worked in my day. I don't give a shit. Stop doing it. It's that simple. The umpires are there to patrol the game. You want to get upset at them, get mad at your own decisions. That's where I stand on it as a fan. But if a player like Chad Warner is showing what the AFL would now call dissent, all an umpire has to do is just say stop. Just say stop. They don't have to say anything else. Not stop, you're offending me or anything like that, or stop, what you're saying is not okay. All they got to do is say stop. That eliminates reflexes. That then becomes a decision, because if a player keeps going, they're deciding to show dissent. It is a much better way to patrol the rule, and if players are being told to stop and they do, clearly that's not dissent. All an umpire needs to do to Chad Warner after that decision is just say stop. Chad Warner stops, throws the ball back. I think it was to Matt Kennedy. I could be wrong on that. Someone can correct me in the comments. And then if Chad Warner stands there on the mark, bang, play on, no 50. Players show dissent or swear at an umpire, absolutely pay the 50. And as a fan, if you're not okay with the fact that you can't swear at umpires, please go to therapy. And last but not least, the prohibited contact. Look, it was a bad day. The Lockie Neal decision on Jai Newcombe was really poor. The Tom Mitchell decision on Jackson Pryor was as bad, if not worse. And I just think it's umpires that are trying to crack down on too many things at once. And again, I do not blame the umpires here. They are getting the message from their bosses, and they are trying to implement it the best that they can. So, Brad Scott, Gillon McLachlan, the next CEO, whether it's Brendan Gale or Kylie Rogers or whoever it may be, Andrew Dillon, fix it. You're losing fans. I know COVID is the reason that people are staying away, but social media really is a powerful tool. If you listen to the fans when it came to a 2:30 time for the grand final, listen to the fans that are going to stop buying tickets, because we'll pour money into memberships. People love their footy club. But if they're not enjoying the spectacle that footy club is being put on because of decisions that AFL House are making, they're in big trouble. And we don't have to throw rules out the window, but we can tweak them, bring common sense and decision-making back into the game. Players are not robots. So that's my little rant there. So what's been happening that's kind of kept dazzling away from YouTube? Well, there's been a couple of things. Number one, work, my actual job, has been pretty insane. So I've been looking after that, and although I do work from home, the ability to have like big breaks and stuff and be able to record and have time for edit and stuff has kind of gone out the window. So that is a reason. The second reason has been the stuff with Talking Hawks has been ramping up a little. I've got to write up about every player. I've got to preview all that stuff. And I'm hoping to turn the Talking Hawks content into something that, you know, has some sort of monetary value. That would be something that's really cool to look at down the line. But I've kind of been juggling those throughout doing YouTube. But the thing that's changed the most has actually been RPPFM. Now, they are the Peninsula Community Radio Kings. They're the leaders, the number one. And they've kind of taken me on, which has been really, really cool. So I've jumped on their MP-NFL show, and it's also been how I know people are screaming at umpires way too much at local senior level, because I've been getting down there. But the MP-NFL show, I'm looking at an all-access, or all aspects, I should say, Peninsula Sports Show, starting to get involved with the community more, which is awesome. But the big thing that has taken up a lot of time has been Smithy and you'll know Smithy from the channel, especially from the draft chats and all that. I've actually made our very first footy podcast, The Great Footy Debate, into a production with RPPFM. Now, we've recorded one episode, and at the time of recording, we'll be doing episode 2. The links of all that will be in the comment section below. But this is a really exciting opportunity. I'm not 100% sure where it's going to take us, but I am enjoying the ride immensely and can't wait to see what happens next. Now, can I get some of that content and put it on the channel? Well, I've got a meeting tonight, and we'll find out. But between run sheets, production, and all those things, that has taken up a lot of my time. Another cool piece of news is I have a new laptop, which is awesome. So I'll be able to do a lot better videos like I was doing in forms of Supercoach and the rankings, where we do tier lists and stuff like that. So computer content is going to get a lot better as well. As to what's coming next on a more consistent basis, I don't think I can tell you for about another week, because I'm not 100% sure myself. Now, I don't want you to unsubscribe and go away or anything like that. I will figure it out, but a little bit of patience. This YouTube venture is still pretty new, and I'm still trying to work time and figure out where we're at, because I kind of need to sleep as well, so that's a bit of a worry. But that's what's been going on. The link to the Great Footy Debate is going to be in the comments now. Week 1, it might not be as 100% relevant now that we've had another week of footy, but it is a really cool concept. The closest thing that I can say is it's a bit like Undisputed, just with better takes than what Skip Bayless gives us. But if you're looking at it like that, but I also think we're at a stage where if people disagree with other people's sports opinions, it turns into a hate-filled conversation. And Smithy and I, we've known each other for a decade. We know what we agree and disagree on, and there's no hatred there. There is a good, banter, intelligent footy conversation, and of course, a whole lot of fun. So I'll keep you updated with that. Fingers crossed, you know, I can start posting again on YouTube. The full reviews are going to be something that's going to be difficult, because a lot of those topics I'll be taking into that show, but I'm going to figure out as soon as I can. I really appreciate everyone that's watched this video, stuck around and been pretty patient. You're all fantastic. I can't wait to see you in the next video. I hope your team goes well on the weekend. Goodbye.